Random House Audio presents The Chairman by Stephen Frey. Read for you by Erik Singer. Christian Gillette gazed out at a grim-faced congregation, then down on an open coffin and Bill Donovan's face. Until 2 days ago, Donovan had been the chairman. Gillette was just 36, but suddenly that enormous responsibility had been thrust upon him, the decision to promote him made by a razor-thin majority of Everest Capital investors late yesterday at an emotionally charged meeting held in a conference room overlooking Wall Street. "The world has lost a great man," Gillette declared, ending his brief eulogy. Donovan wouldn't have wanted something long and drawn out. He'd been obsessive about efficiency. As Gillette stepped down from the pulpit, he heard the muffled sobs of family, the stony silence of enemies. Donovan had touched many lives for better and worse. It was the inevitable consequence of being chairman. "I'm sorry for your loss, Anne," Gillette said quietly, getting down on one knee before the veiled widow in the front pew. "We all admired Bill very much." "Thank you," she whispered. Gillette rose and moved deliberately up the cathedral's center aisle, pausing to acknowledge high-profile guests, each one standing well before Gillette reached him, pledging their loyalty and assistance in low voices, each with a different agenda, but all focused on one thing: Gillette's sudden control of billions. Gillette gave them a subtle nod in return, studying their expressions with his piercing gray eyes, gauging their sincerity, for the first time truly experiencing the power he now wielded. The three men who until yesterday had been his equals, Troy Mason, Ben Cohen, and Nigel Faraday, trailing him at a respectful distance as he worked his way up the maroon carpet. Not until Gillette had made it to the back of the church did the congregation begin filing out. Raw November gusts whipped trash down Park Avenue as Gillette moved through the church's arched double doorway. He paused at the top of the marble steps leading to the sidewalk, taking in the sense of wood smoke and caramel wafting from a street vendor's cart. "Come on, Chris," Cohen urged, clasping Gillette's elbow and pulling him down the stairs. "We've got to get you to the cemetery." Until yesterday, Cohen and Gillette had been equals. Together with Mason and Faraday, they'd formed the managing partner team supporting Donovan, but now he'd risen above them. "Take your hand off me," Gillette ordered, "and from now on, call me Christian." "Is that a sine qua non?" Cohen asked solemnly. Gillette's right hand contracted slowly into a fist. He hated Cohen's habit of using Latin. "Dead languages don't impress me." Cohen's lower lip quivered ever so slightly. "So it starts already." "Do you understand?" "Yes," Cohen hesitated. "Christian." As they reached the bottom step, a heavy-set chauffeur emerged from the limousine and lumbered toward the back. The instant the chauffeur lifted the passenger door handle, the limousine exploded in a brilliant flash of white and yellow light. The massive concussion spewed jagged metal fragments hundreds of feet in all directions. Gillette brought his arms to his face, but he was a fraction of a second too late. Gillette glanced past the driver into the rearview mirror of the Lincoln town car. The wound in his forehead had stopped bleeding at the cemetery, but there were stains on his starched white shirt and a thin maroon cut at his hairline, stark reminders of how close he had come to quickly following Bill Donovan into the ground. "You okay, Christian?" Cohen sat beside Gillette in the back seat. A wisp of a man with thinning, curly black hair, Cohen remembered every number he had ever calculated. He took off his glasses and cleaned the lenses with a tissue. He was only 37, but he already needed bifocals. "I'm fine," Gillette answered firmly. "Looks like you might need a couple of stitches." "I'm fine." "We'll figure out who is responsible," Cohen vowed. "We'll use the McGuire brothers. I'll call Tom tomorrow." McGuire and Company offered security services, surveillance, background checks, investigations, and executive protection. Tom and Vince McGuire, brothers and ex-FBI agents, ran the firm for Everest Capital, which owned the company.
It won't take long to nail whoever did this," Cohen added.
Gillette peered out the rear window. Faraday and Mason were in the limousine behind them, escorting the widow from the cemetery to Donovan's 1,000-acre Connecticut estate for the reception. "You'll never figure out who blew up the limousine," Gillette said. "The same way no one will ever figure out what really happened to Bill Donovan on that stream." Donovan's body had been found Wednesday morning, face down in a trout stream that snaked through a remote part of his heavily wooded property. Cohen squinted, the way he always did when he was startled or confused.
"What do you mean, what really happened to Bill? Bill drowned."
"Did he?"
"Christian, the police are sure he—"
"I walked that stream with Bill a few years ago. It isn't very wide and it doesn't get deeper than a few feet. Bill was murdered," Gillette said bluntly.
"My God,"
Cohen said, his voice hushed.
"I never even thought about that."
"What about the limousine exploding? Doesn't that tell you something?"
Cohen hesitated. "That's a good point."
They were silent for a few minutes while the town car headed deeper into the Connecticut forest. "Mason's angry," Gillette spoke up. "He thought he'd be chairman."
"He would have if Bill hadn't died so suddenly," Cohen agreed. "Troy was Bill's favorite, but I don't think he's angry."
"Troy wanted what I have more than anything in the world, the same way Faraday did." Gillette looked over at Cohen. "The same way you did, Ben." Cohen's pale cheeks flushed.
"I would have done a good job,"
he muttered under his breath. "Do you think Troy will resign?" Gillette asked.
"Well, how can he? Most of his net worth is tied up in Everest. If he resigns, he forfeits his stake in the firm. That's the deal we all signed up for."
"What do you think his stake is worth?"
$60 million. Same as yours and Faraday's. Same as mine."
"What if I fire Troy?" Gillette asked, aware that Cohen knew the ins and outs of Everest's legal documents better than anyone. Cohen had always been focused on details, which was why he hadn't been elected chairman yesterday. The chairman of a big private equity firm had to think strategically, and Cohen was constantly off in the weeds, chasing minutiae. He'd received only one vote, his own. Gillette knew how many votes each of them had gotten after checking the minutes of the meeting. As chairman, he was the only one inside Everest who had access to them. He'd beaten Mason by a single vote. "What happens then?" Gillette pushed when Cohen didn't answer. "If I fire Troy?"
"We get an investment bank to do a formal appraisal of his stake," Cohen answered, "to confirm the $60 million figure. Then we pay it to him in equal monthly installments over 5 years."
"What if he's terminated for cause?"
"You mean if he's convicted of a felony?"
"Right."
"He forfeits his stake immediately and the three of us get it."
Cohen shook his head.
"There's no chance of that, though. Troy's a lot of things, but he's no criminal."
"Isn't there a broader definition of cause in the partnership agreement? Something about committing acts that could harm Everest's reputation or be detrimental to our business prospects?"
"If you fired Troy using that clause, he'd sue us," Cohen said confidently, "and probably win. You've got to have something more."
"But it's there," Gillette prompted. "Right?"
"Yes."
Cohen hesitated.
"Are you really thinking about firing Troy?"
Gillette glanced at the railroad tracks paralleling the road. "What about Donovan's stake in Everest?" he asked, avoiding Cohen's question.
"There's a special exemption in the partnership's operating agreement for Bill," Cohen explained. "Because he was the founder, his widow stays in and shares the upside as we sell companies. She doesn't get paid out right away in one lump sum like Mason would if he resigned. And thank God," Cohen added quickly. "The widow's share of Everest is worth more than $4 billion at this point."
"But she has no authority," Gillette spoke up. "She can't tell me how to run Everest."
"No, she can't. As chairman, you now have total control."
Cohen paused.
"Unless a significant number of the partners get together and vote to remove you."
"Tell me about that." Cohen shrugged.
"It's pretty simple. If 60% of the..."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?